DMF. I am your host, Justin Yachts, and today is part 2 of my interview with Tom Ackerman. He's a cinematographer. He has done films such as Beetlejuice and Anchorman. Enjoy.
All right, moving on a little bit here. I want to talk a little bit about Canon Films. What was that like working with them? Is they're very like run and gun, I imagine, where it's just like we're going.
Well, I would say certainly run and gun with respect to paying their bills before they leave town. But they were certainly, I would have to say, very professional in the way they made films. They made some widely released films that look good structurally. They were good films. Runaway Train, I think, was one. New Year's Evil is the movie that I shot. It was really the first feature that I had ever done. And I can look at it today. It was done very low budget. I think around 700,000 or 800,000, which even in 1979 or whenever we did it in that era, you could, for 4 weeks, you could do a good film for that, a well-crafted film. And in fact, I can look at the thing today without any embarrassment whatsoever about the photography. Anyway, it's fairly over the top in a lot of its story elements, and it's like the quintessential 70s slasher movie where for some reason.
But it's Canon Films. That's
Yeah.
what they did.
Yeah.
It was filmed well.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so for my part, it was a great opportunity to shoot a real movie, to do all the to ramp up the craft to a level that was appropriate. And like I say, I can look at it, I can screen it now, and I'm not shrinking back into my chair. We did a good job. It's very arch, of course, very much. If someone has got a dagger in their hand, which they frequently do, ready to do some stabbing, you'll get two things for sure. You'll get a nice little glint on the switchblade, ding, set a light very precisely. And then there was some discretion shown for the actual stabbing activity. You'd see that in a very well-defined shadow. Leads to all the questions. You see a young woman who's walking past an alley. She hears something and starts and continues to walk down the alley. A couple of things. First of all, why the hell is she doing that? No apparent reason. Secondly, we've got the camera way low, dollying down, and so you get this dramatic low angle. And she's like, if that weren't enough to really, the veracity is already very shaky at this point. And then to top it all off, she comes to a dumpster, a closed dumpster, mind you, at the end of the alley. Well, nothing extraordinary. Although if she were listening, she could hear the music ramping up and telling the audience something was weird was about to happen. And sure enough, well, I think I'll look into the dumpster. Yeah, I know a lot of people who would do exactly that.
Yeah, nobody.
Dark alley. I wonder what's in there. I wonder if there are any, And of course, point of view from inside, she looks inside, then cut into the dumpster, and the guy Kip Niven with a cigarette lighter. Dun, 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 dun. Big scare moment, and totally illogical.
But that's what they did. I mean, that's what a lot of those 80s, 70s slashers did. They were like, kind of started with John Carpenter's, Halloween, which is really well done, but it's done because it's an interesting story to it, and it was very new at the time. And then you had Friday the 13th, and then it's like, let's just do that, but let's just amp up the gore.
Yeah.
And then there was just was it Silent Night? It's like a horror film at Christmas time. I have a friend that was like, he'll have like a Christmas party. And instead of showing like Christmas movies, you'd think he'll show something like Silent Night. And I'd be like,
yeah, but it was a time of tremendous excess, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the 80s.
Tremendous excess and the worst possible taste. The most ham-fisted, crude, insulting movie you could watch.
Yeah, they would always go for like if you do any research on it, you realize that like you can't actually stab somebody like that. The skull is actually too thick to actually penetrate a knife. You would actually have, like it would.
Yeah.
But we always do that in every movie, and it's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no.
Like that's not how a skull is very hard to break.
That's why surgeons have to use a drill to get in there,
Exactly.
Anyway,
It's just that logic goes. So let's talk a little bit about National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. One of the things I noticed about it is it's shot very traditionally. Now, you've talked about this in other interviews where you really can't tell the difference between a drama or a comedy, but there's something about the way it looked it looked similar, like you filmed it similar to the way Gremlins is filmed. It's just that similar lighting. Talk a little bit about lighting that film.
Okay.
Filming that film. Excuse me.
I have very positive memories of shooting that Christmas Vacation. My approach to it, and my approach, quite frankly, to every comedy I've ever shot was not to shoot it like a comedy, whatever that is. I don't know. I mean, there's been some horrendous flat and bright lighting committed in the sense of comedy. I've worked with some comedy practitioners, including John Hughes, who had no taste for that at all. They wanted their movies to look like movies, and they would then craft a story that had nothing to do that wanted to be well shot. As a matter of fact, in Christmas Vacation, there's that scene where Chevy haplessly gets locked up in the attic, and the trap door folds up, and it's cold, and he's got a mink coat. He's huddled down, and he's looking at a wonderful old 8mm home movie and bringing it back fond memories. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that scene was not light and bright. It was an attic, and I didn't cop to anything other than it's a guy in an attic watching a movie. It is sad. So fortunately, he's in the attic, because that'll help me, steer things a little bit in the sad and lonely direction. I got what would it have been? Not a telegram the next day from John, but I guess we would be doing Twixes by that time. It said, and he was a night owl. He didn't watch dailies until the wee hours of the morning. But I got this the next day. He said, "Tom, thank you so much. It looked exactly like every attic I've ever been in. Perfect. Thank you." Words to that effect. So he, excuse me, he appreciated good photography. Sometimes it would be joke-oriented photography, but always, I never had any pushback whatsoever on a shot or a sequence or lighting or anything.
Is it true when Chevy Chase has his big blow up or whatever that they actually put name tags of what he was saying on the people?
That they actually did put
when he has the part where he finds out he's not going to get the check in the his bonus is really nothing, and he has the eggnog. He goes up there and he starts like the only kind of like comedy visual gag I would say there is like when you cut to the family and their reaction of like, whoa, wow, he's losing it.
Yeah.
Is it true though, when he was doing that scene that they put that they had to he forgot the lines or something, so they had to put like name tags on the other?
I don't.
Or is
recall,
that just urban legend?
No, I don't recall anything like that.
Okay.
And it was a wordy speech.
Yeah.
And there was the wide shot that we did where everyone was assembled, and he's in the adjoining room, and they're like audience spread about him. I don't recall any dialogue aids like that. No.
Okay, so then that's just urban legend then. I don't know. I read that somewhere and I was like, I'm going to ask him about it because he was on set. He knows whether that actually happened or not. It's kind of moving forward. You talked a little bit about how when you film somebody at an injury, whether it's for comedy or more dramatic, you mentioned specifically Dennis the Menace. When he falls, you said that you had to change the angle, and you said certain injuries can take people, or the way it's shot can take people out of the film. Can you give an example of something like that where you felt is that just something that I don't think they're going to watch it specifically, and it's more like a subconscious thing that you're probably getting to?
There are two examples that I could offer. One is what you have cited from Christmas Vacation, and it's when Dennis the Menace, excuse me, where Walter Matthau is up looking for something in the attic. I don't remember exactly what it was.
On the boat?
No. He's up in the attic, and he's just, walking along, and he slips on a ball, I think it was, and goes wham, flat back on his from a standing position to his whoa.
Yeah.
Well, that was classic comedy blocking and choreography that needed to be done very, very carefully, because an ordinary human being would fracture their back in doing that. Yeah. But there's something about the extremity, the ludicrous over-the-topness of it that you just don't react, frankly. And already up for you're kind of in on the joke. Another evidence of choreography helping us dodge the bullet in that respect is in another movie, Rat Race. I don't know if you've ever seen.
I've seen Rat Race.
Okay. Well, Polini, the Italian, the nutty Italian guy who's a narcoleptic and falls asleep.
Oh, Rowan Atkinson's character. Atkinson. Yeah.
Anyway, so Rowan is crossing the street, and the hapless delivery driver, who's got
Wayne Knights and Wayne Knight
hits Paulini, and who goes, and this was the shot. You have the impact, you see the vehicle coming, whomp, and he literally arcs through the air and out of frame. It would be between the impact and that trajectory and then hitting the pavement, it would kill somebody.
Yeah.
But it is so ludicrous and so, no pun intended, over the top. It's laughable. It's just so that you totally buy the fact that he then of course the driver comes out. What a brilliant moment. No.
He thinks he's going to get sued.
What else can go wrong? He finds out pretty soon when they lose the heart by the side of the road. That was a second blow.
Yeah.
But what implies all of this, including the stray dog having grabbed the human heart.
Yeah, they're trying to run after it.
Yeah, they're trying to, it could be considered the most brutal and tasteless thing ever, but it's put in a context. And this is what a really good comedy director can do. And I would like, to think that I can help with that process, but putting it into a context that it's violent. Yes, it's kind of slapstick of a sort.
And you have the dog there, but the way it's filmed, it's not, the scene is not about a dog dying. It's basically, they're trying to get the heart, so when he gets it there, he's like, okay, we need to find some, you transition out of that to okay, we just need to find somebody who doesn't know anybody, and kill him and just take his heart. And he realized
the performance was so great, the way he shifted his attention to Rowan at that time. this guy can actually commit murder, and he intends to do exactly that.
And the guy in Rowan's character has like no idea that he's giving him the information he needs for the character. So it's like, nope, I'm all alone. I have no one. And he's like, he just told him.
He just digs himself a hole, and you can see it coming. That's a great scene.
So, it's so funny. I love that scene.
That picture, and I will tell you that Jerry Zucker knows comedy.
He does. He did Airplane. You know, I mean,
right. And his brother as well. They know comedy.
Okay, so you shot Frankenweenie with Tim Burton. When you come back to do Beetlejuice, had you seen him change as a filmmaker? Like did you notice changes with his approach, or was he always?
Well, no, I didn't see a change. I saw a progression. The filmmaker that he was destined to become was happening in every way. It seemed very. I expected it. I mean, I saw nothing unexpected, and so as far as I was concerned, what I saw was the continuing journey of a very talented filmmaker. Now, I did a week of shooting in between those two projects, Frankenweenie and, it came on the heels of a disappointment. Tim had initially wanted me to shoot Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and to that end, a meeting was arranged at the studio, and met the producers and the head of studio, and we had a wonderful chat, and it was a very, it was encouraging to a large extent. But then a couple of weeks later, by this time, my wife and I were in France, I think, in Bordeaux on vacation. And I get a call from Gersh, Tom, I got bad news for you. They went with somebody else on the Pee-wee thing. To tell you the truth, I wasn't at all depressed. For reasons. A, I am in a lovely place, having a great time with my wife. We're going to celebrate New Year's at the Crillon Hotel in Paris. And we're about to have our first baby. And, I've got plenty of work. I wasn't like hard up for something to do. I also reasoned, I could see the rationale on Pee-wee. First of all, I didn't quite have the clout at that point. I was almost there, but I didn't quite have it. And I can understand that the studio might have been a little leery. They would want somebody with more weight, someone just a skosh more formidable than me at that time. There wouldn't have been any doubt a couple of years later, after I had shot Back to School, which was and it's also a good film. But that was not the case then. So anyway, I understood the logic of it. I wasn't thrilled, but neither was I morose.
You weren't like, this is it, my life is over. Yeah, it was just like
indeed, in the steps that we took. Oh, but I did go and shoot for a week when Victor Kemper, who did shoot Pee-wee, was took sick with some horrible flu bug or whatever it was. And so I shot, maybe it was more than a week, I don't remember, but it was nice because we had a great time shooting together, as always. I was very happy with the work. So, and that then came to fruition after I had established kind of, as it were, studio credibility with Back to School, one of the top 10 grossing domestically released films, and it was out there. At any rate, and that was a non-comedy rating. It was like just one of the 10 best and most profitable.
Yeah. What was, because you just mentioned Back to School, I just wanted to, what was the work like working with Rodney Dangerfield?
Great. Very, very, Rodney is Rodney, and he's kind of a spacey guy. but
Yeah.
he really he could do it. He could do whatever we needed. I mean, it was, it would be like we would have prepared a shot and tend to be fairly fastidious about marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Rodney would come in from the makeup trailer. Hey, Tom, yeah, where do I stand? And well, Rodney's just stand there. See that yellow one? That's your mark. Okay, you got it. And that was, he was extremely accommodating. His performance was exemplary. It was inspirational to play this absolute jerk. By the way, much credit to the late and wonderful Alan Metter, who helped him play a part for the first time. It wasn't like Caddyshack or like doing shtick, but he's really Rodney. Here he was Thornton Mellon. And
he had to act. He had to have because he's carrying the movie. So he has to have the sad scenes. He has to have that, he's got a
romance scene with Sally Kellerman. Reading that on the script and I don't know, how am I going to light this? And I chose to make it, it was a dark living room, and as always, when I photographed Sally, she got the benefit of the biggest bounce cards and, lovely. I mean, I basically lavished upon her what I would have been lavishing on rock and roll performers that I was dealing with at the time. And that was to not make it boring, but make it beautiful. But that was, the love scene with Sally did give me some cause for concern.
All right, so let's jumping back to Beetlejuice. So you don't get big Pee-wee's Big Playhouse, and I think that was like his first big film, and he had to fight, I think, with the studios, mercilessly, Tim Burton. So I'm sure he couldn't, like today, he probably could have just, said, look, this is who I want. Whereas there, he didn't have that, kind of say. So you're making Beetlejuice. I was fascinated by how you talked about the distinctions between the three universes. Like there's the place where Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are. Then there's the afterlife world, which is kind of where Beetlejuice, inhabits. And then you have the people that bought the house, and you've got this, like, I don't know, it's an interesting style. I mean, I was looking at some of the shots today, and I was just like, what was kind of the aesthetic for that third look?
It all was derived from the extremely gauche renovation of the house. What had started as a relatively undistinguished, but nevertheless honest-looking Victorian redo with some questionable wallpaper here and there, and boring furniture, had become this postmodern nightmare. Along with that, some of its windows disappeared. Its natural light sources had vanished. There weren't a bunch of cozy table lamps sitting around for night work. And so the lighting and the camera work went into that same surreal, shadowy, weird space. And if you look at the shots, you'll find out, you'll see a lot of, like, where are those shadows coming from, and why are those patterns evident? Well, it worked graphically, and it was weird. It was something that, see, on every level, I felt an obligation to make it a zany but uncomfortable fit. And indeed, there was no stone left unturned. I mean, and Tim was great. I don't know how it might have been my suggestion, but when Otho, the interior decorator, is just appalled by what's happening, and it's after Beetlejuice is sprung out of the game with the oversized mallet hands, and Otho is really out, and he's running out of the house, and a theatrical follow spot opens up and nails revealing, as you well remember, his horrible leisure suit. Robin's egg leisure suit. The guy was always dressed in black. And there was another extreme lighting effect was after, and kind of it was a reprise in a way, or maybe it happens before. No, it happens after the Otho spotlight. The parents are invited out to, Beetlejuice is summoning them to come forward. They and then others come out, and eventually the Robert Goulet character, and he gets a spotlight too, and then whoosh, they're shot up through the ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's extremely heavy-handed, a lot of that, but the shapes, the graphics, the colors really were important to keep the environment of the house weird.
Yeah, and I can see that. It's like the blending of the two worlds.
Yes.
The house has become. It starts off with it's just a New England home, and then you got the afterlife, and then it's the merging of the two.
Yeah, and then we had to follow through with that for the New England sequences, and that was a house that was the exterior facade of the house built on a hill, and the deck, and they have that one at the end of the deck is that one sort of nominal wall element with clapboard and a window in it. It's just like stuck on. It doesn't make any sense. So I got the idea, and this is typical of what Tim would support. And I know it's because the idea that was proffered was what he liked it very much. If I proposed something that he felt was not going to work in the movie, he would have been the first to say it. But in that case, one of my favorite shots didn't even involve any lighting, but we start massaging, panning across this bucolic landscape. Then the camera pulls back and reveals the white clapboard. We pull back further, and we see the two parents sitting bored out of their minds in their wicker chairs, and they carry on some dialogue. But it was one of my favorite shots in terms of how we were able to get into it.
I always like the shot when they're in the waiting room. It's the afterlife or hell, and it just looks. Was the idea just take the DMV and make that even worse?
Yeah. No, it was a wonderful experience. Working on the whole show, I have to credit my camera operator, Douglas Knapp, who actually photographed a lot of the scenes in the waiting room. I did the establishing, and a certain number of shots I did, but a lot of the shots where they're just sitting in, these people in various forms of debilitation or sitting bored out of their minds in the chair. The guy with the chicken in his hooked on a chicken leg, and those were shot by Doug because it was done post-production.
Yeah, interesting. Did you guys realize when the big musical scene around the table? Did you guys realize from reading the script, you were this is gonna be a moment, or it's that's
no? But I will tell you one thing I knew absolutely. I had no premonition from reading the script. On a Friday afternoon, the last thing that we did that day was to rehearse that scene.
Yeah.
No lights, no camera, but the rehearsal. And the actors did a phenomenal job. And I knew absolutely that it was going to be an off-the-wall great scene.
It's probably one of the most famous scenes in the movie is that Catherine O'Hara, doing the whole, you're doing a whole, but I love the little subtlety you got there. They're looking at we're not sure what we're doing. And I think that little touch to it adds to it. It's they didn't just completely become different characters. They're doing movement of somebody else, but they realize there's a realization that why are we doing this?
Yeah, and Lydia, who's struggling to keep things normal, then finally she succumbs, and it's hilarious.
I know. It's so great. What was Michael Keaton like on that film?
Brilliant, delightful to work with. Always, he was technically great, i.e., he knew how to play the lens and hit his marks, and he understood all that.
Yeah.
But he also gave so much to the character. I mean, the Beetlejuice, as finally rendered, did not exist when we started doing
Well, that's
prep for the
That's why
film.
I just listened to an interview talking about that. Like Tim kind of left him alone because he wasn't even sure if he could do it. And he just started looking around. I think Tim Burton said that like he spans all time and space. And that somehow that idea jumped in Michael Keaton, and he was just kept going with that idea. And it's like, okay, he's gonna have mold here, whatever. And I guess the first time Tim actually saw him was when he was all in the get up, and he was like, he's either going to really like this or he's going to hate it, and it was.
Well, Tim is a brilliant director, and sometimes I think you get performance by giving a certain amount of freedom initially, as long as, I mean,
Yeah.
there was no way it was going to be a loose cannon that would roll off the deck. But the, costumers, Aggie did a fantastic job. And Michael Keaton is a brilliant performer.
I mean, it's just such an interesting look, and it's such an interesting, just it's so different.
Okay, that about does it for part 2 of my interview with Tom Ackerman. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank him for coming on. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. Stay tuned for part 3. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider giving the YouTube version of this a try. And I will see you next time on the DMF.